came to Rutgers in the early 70s. I was very little recruited by anybody. Rutgers actually was the only full scholarship I got, so I was like very happy to come. But in terms of actually interviewing with coaches, I interviewed with the great Frank Burns, and he was so stern. He was, to me, like if Frank Sinatra was a coach, he would be Frank Burns, because he had a reputation and he was steely-eyed. He had a handshake that turned my fingers into just one piece of meat. And also he said, you'll get a chance to play in Hawaii. I'm in. And I came to Rutgers, and the experience was fantastic. Though I was little recruited, I was fortunate to be the first freshman to play varsity and to start. And from there, I became a man from a boy, from freshman to senior year. There were two people who I came to actually idolize, and they became, I guess, a bell tower, or to compare something against excellence, it would be these two individuals. The first one was Paul Robeson. Everyone has heard of Paul Robeson, that he was a giant in history. Never mind Rutgers history, is one of the greatest ever, but in history he was one of the most talented men that ever existed. He was Phi Beta Kappa, I believe. He was an All-American. He was an opera singer. He did everything well. Well, I just heard about this guy. I said, that's great. I'm going to the school where Paul Robeson went to. I didn't know Rutgers had this guy, that guy, that guy. Okay, fine. One day, I was with someone whose name escapes me right now, but the men who I were with, and I believe they were alumni, said, come here, I want to introduce you with somebody, to somebody rather, and I came along. And they introduced us to Paul Robeson's son, standing right next to me. So at the time, I think I was 18 then, or 20, somewhere in that neighborhood. I was very shy, but in my mind was, I've got to ask him, would it be possible to see your father, to meet your father? And lips were quivering, it never got out, and unfortunately, Paul Robeson passed away 3 months later. One of my biggest regrets. But I started to see certain individuals who did everything well, that they weren't just a fantasy story that somebody wrote up to make a fictional novel or a movie. This person existed, and he went to this school. The second person that I actually met was Alex Kroll. Alex Kroll, another football player, by the way, who did everything well. Did everything excellent. I shouldn't say well. He was a 4.0 student. He was an All-American center. He played professional football. He was the CEO of the largest, at the time, largest advertising firm in the world, Young and Rubicon. And I got a chance to meet him. And his life read like an Andy Hardy novel. At the time, Andy Hardy was Peaches Cream, captain of the team, and married the cheerleader, and was an excellent student. Well, he existed. And when I say excellent, I mean you can't get he couldn't do any better unless his head exploded. He was fantastic, and he, along with Paul Robeson, showed me that if you even approach that type of excellence here at Rutgers, you will do well. And I knew I could do it. One of the lasting memories that I have at Rutgers was one of the reasons I came to Rutgers. It was kind of like a perk. If you come to Rutgers, you'll get a chance to go to Hawaii. And I was a concrete kid. I really didn't, as a lot of students didn't, have a vast repertoire of places I've been to. It was basically North Jersey. That was it. And so when we went to Hawaii, we got to tour Hawaii and see all the places that were lore, that the waterfalls, the coconuts, the trees, the hula girls. And a little aside, I won't get into it too deeply, but I actually went to a bar and got turned down by Chaka Khan. I didn't know it was Chaka Khan until I turned around and said, hey, that's Chaka Khan. Come on, Dwight, we gotta go, but that's Chaka Khan. Okay, but that was a great time. The football game was a fiasco. Unfortunately, we lost, but it was a dogfight. The fans were throwing anything they can get their hands on us, at us, stones, melons. Guys were getting hit in the face, stomped on. It was a melee, but I went to Hawaii. And to this day, I've been a lot of other places, of course, but that remains one of the top 3 places that I've gone, and I certainly cherish that memory.